This was our garage. It was packed full of stuff, unorganized, and needed a lot of love. But I'm going to show you in this video how I completely emptied it, took it down to the bare walls, ran new electrical, put in new walls. I even gave it a paint job, put some new lighting in, poured in epoxy flooring and made some custom cabinets, and turned it into my dream garage that it is today. But before I can get into all that, I have to start at the very beginning.
So, yeah, I'm a little ashamed to say that this is the state of the garage, but it's also a little mix of, yeah.
I don't know why I couldn't find the words to say it. It's a mix of 40 years worth of stuff.
Today's goal, though, if I can clean out all of that and all of that, that would be a productive win for the day. So let's get to it. Here we go.
Cleaning out and organizing a garage that had been full for 40 years definitely did not happen in one weekend. But I'd start in one corner and work my way out. I'd make piles of things that I knew I was going to reuse in the garage and bring back in, as well as things that I knew I definitely didn't want to keep and sell or donate or even recycle. The money I made from selling items out of the garage I was able to put back into materials needed later on in the garage build. Getting to do a little demo work and seeing an exposed wall was like seeing light at the end of the tunnel. I made sure to dispose of all of the old chemicals and paints by packing them up and taking them to an e-waste center, along with any of the old electronics that I knew I wasn't going to use. You would not believe the amount of locks and keys that I came across when going through the garage, but I was able to later incorporate them into the garage design, along with a bunch of old cool vintage tools. As much as I would have loved to have kept the old workbench for the new garage, I said my words of gratitude, thanked it for the years of service, said goodbye, and then I cut it down into smaller pieces so that it was easier to remove it.
Little progress update. Making some moves in here. But up next, I need to figure out this whole rafter situation. So, game plan. Is to take all these boards down. I guess starting with these ones right here.
All the weight from these boards and the stuff that was stored up here really took its toll on these cross beams. Once I was able to get all those heavy boards down, I was able to assess the cross beams, which I noticed a couple actually needed to be sistered or even replaced.
Ugh. That is definitely one of the things we're going to take care of. That whole crazy electrical situation with multiple extension outlets. And now let's make that safe. Game plan, get these old light fixtures down since they're not as eco-friendly, and also they're hanging way low. So we're gonna pull those down, and run some new safe electrical and get some LED shop lighting in here. Let's do this.
These old 8-foot fluorescent light fixtures were deceivingly heavy, and I was so glad to get those down. Once I had gotten the old light fixtures down, it was time to expose the last of the walls so that I could run new electrical for outlets, lighting, and light switches. At this point, I had never seen the garage this empty.
Whew, what a day. I mean, I never thought I would see it like this.
In all my life, I had never seen the garage this bare, and it was just a shock.
I got the wood delivery today, which was cool for the walls and for the new beams, so we're moving forward. Progress, onward and upward.
Once the garage was completely empty, I was able to come in and give more support to the cross beams and the rafters. We replaced this one altogether and used it as our template for cutting down our other support beams that we used to sister all the cross beams. Before, the rafters were a little haphazard and didn't have a lot of support, but now that everything's sistered up, there's a lot more support in the rafters, and now it was ready for paint. I invested in a Wagner sprayer for around $200, and let me tell you, it made this job go by so much quicker. With just one coat of paint, the garage was so much brighter. I did come back in and give it one more coat after it dried, but let me tell you, woo, it was bright in here. Now that the rafters were painted, I could focus on running the electrical. Because the walls were exposed, this was the perfect time to put in outlets, and let me tell you, I put outlets everywhere I could. Once the electrical was all good to go, it was time to seal it in with my new wood walls. So I live in Southern California, and we don't get too crazy a weather here, so I opted to not do insulation, which, trust me, I heard about on Instagram. But if I need to later, I screwed the walls in so I could always come back and add insulation at a later time and point. I actually pulled this panel down later in the video to run more electrical for some under cabinet lighting that I didn't plan for in the beginning. At this point, the garage was really starting to take shape. with all new electrical, the wood walls, safe support beams, and a coat of paint up there. But let's keep moving forward and get some paint on these walls. Using the Wagner sprayer cut my paint time in half. I did come back and give everything a second coat to make it that much brighter. And let me tell you, I didn't think it could get any brighter in here until I installed these LED lights from American Green Lights. The new LED lighting that we installed from American Green Lights came in 4-foot strips, so we installed them across all the cross beams and one across the very top. They were thin, sleek, and so lightweight, and made such a huge difference compared to the big, bulky fluorescent lighting that we had taken down earlier. Got 5 strips on the very, very top, and then 4 strips on each beam. But let's turn them on. Look at that. I have to give a big thank you to Jim from American Green Lights for helping out during this portion of the garage renovation. What a difference. All right, we'll just tuck back all those wires and we're good to go. Now that we had great lighting, it was time to focus on the floors. I had my buddy Larry come over who was going to take a quick peek to see what was underneath the crack. That quick peek turned into the entire garage floor being ripped out. But we slowly found out what the root of the problem really was. This huge, gigantic root that was zigzagging down the center of the garage, causing that unevenness to the floors. Once the root of the problem was addressed and the old floor was removed, we had a new concrete subfloor poured. We let this cure for a full month before I could come back and do the epoxy flooring. Even though this was a brand new concrete floor, I still used all the same prep instructions that the kit recommended. I used the Rust-Oleum epoxy shield in a dark gray. When it came to the paint chips, I went heavy, because why not? Once everything had dried for 24 hours, I came in and sealed everything in with the clear epoxy. Because the concrete took a month to cure before I could put down the epoxy flooring, I had some time on my hands to work on some other fun design elements that I incorporated into the garage. I put together a bunch of my dad's old tools that I knew I wasn't going to add into the workshop and painted them black. Then I mounted them onto this board to give a unique tool TV wall surround. I tied in more of the black accents by painting both of the doors black. At this point, it was just kind of fun to add more elements of my dad into the garage. Once the epoxy floors were fully cured, I started on making a custom closet for my husband to store away his surfboards. I wanted him to have a place to be able to store his surfboards, but I also wanted them to be able to keep dust-free and clean, especially because this is going to be a workshop. I built a simple sliding barn door to be able to close off the closet, which will also act as a nice backdrop for taking photos. Now all that was left was to fill it up with some surfboards. I loved adding in these little extra details with my go-to saying and then framing it in with one of my dad's old saws, adding a couple more tools around it, and even adding a whiteboard below to actually write some notes and things, and then even some framed in blueprints. Now it's time to start focusing on the other side of the garage by adding some cabinets. I picked up these upper cabinets from Harbor Freight, and they were pretty easy to assemble, although I noticed they didn't come with any type of handle, just the locks to be able to open and close the cabinets. So I'm going to address that a little bit later. In between the cabinets, I installed this metal pegboard by Wall Control. Big shout out to them for sending this over and a bunch of the fun accessories to add to it. Once I had everything installed, this is when I came back and addressed the no handles in the cabinets. I was able to find some metal handles on Amazon, drill in some pilot holes with a metal drill bit, and install these handles pretty nicely. Definitely took the whole cabinet situation up a notch, especially because how else was I going to open them up? I feel like a kid on Christmas. I'm really, really excited. I've been waiting for this day for, pretty much since we started this project. That whole wall, we're about to finish it off. I'm really excited. Let's go get the cabinets. I purchased my Husky cabinets from Home Depot and actually had to make 2 trips to get them home. Well worth it. I probably should have locked these in place before diving on top, but I was just so excited to have these here. Now it's time to fill them up. I'm sure you're wondering, where did all that stuff go that came out of the garage? Well, the stuff that I didn't sell and that I've been keeping that needs to now be put away and organized has all been being stored back in the rear unit. And I'm excited to get organized to be able to put a lot of this stuff away, finally go through it all. So let's do that. When I cleaned out the garage, I tried to make it as manageable as possible by putting the things that I was gonna keep into small size boxes and then sort it by there to make it easier to move everything back into the garage. Talk about moving in. This was probably the most exciting day that I've had in a really long time. Once I was mostly moved in and had added a couple more finishing touches, I realized that I wanted some under cabinet lighting. which meant that I needed to take the cabinet down and also remove this panel. But this is when I realized if I do need to add insulation at any time and point, it's going to be as easy as unscrewing one of the walls. I ran new electrical for the under cabinet lighting along with a double switch so I had more control over the new lighting that we're installing. Seeing as I was taking the time to run new electrical for a new switch, I figured it couldn't hurt to add a couple more lights. So I added a couple more panels right in the center of the garage by the garage door opener, which is going to go directly above the table saw, giving me ample extra light.
All right, now we got a new double switch so we can control the new set of lights underneath the cabinets and the new center section, as well as the top lights and then the overall lights. Let's give them a shot. Ooh, under cabinet lights, okay. Upper lights and all the lights. Looking good.
Now that the under cabinet lighting was installed, I used this thin dry erase board that I cut down to use as a backsplash, which also helped hide some of the wires.
Cool. Now I got dry erase board all along the backsplash underneath the cabinets. Got some underneath lighting and even got a dry erase marker right here so I can write down measurements, notes. Cool little extra feature.
I feel like this is a perfect opportunity to give a shameless plug. If you're not already following me on Instagram at wood_brain, please do. It's time to move on to the final wall of the garage, starting with the clamp wall in the corner, where I installed metal pegboard from Wall Control and hung all of the clamps that I had on hand. Once my clamp wall was complete, it was time to move on to the right side, this open section of the wall where I had all this extra room for storage. I have to give a big thank you and shout out to Levrack for sending over their 7-foot storage unit. This worked out perfect for adding all the last bit of storage that we needed in the garage. Once the cabinet installation was complete, all that was left was to fill it up with storage. Now, are you ready for the final reveal of the garage? I started this Dream Garage Makeover a little over a year ago, and it took a lot of hard work and effort to get it to this point from where it was at. I'm really proud of all the hard work and effort that went into this garage. I found a lot of cool treasures and things that my dad would have loved to have seen reincorporated into this garage. I saved and stored away a lot of his tools and also was able to reinvest in some newer tools that I needed along the way. I even sold my old table saw and invested in myself and got an upgrade. This garage gives me all the feels. I've lived here my entire life, so to see the garage look like this is a complete transformation. I spend more time in my garage now than I do in my own home, and I'm not mad about it. All the love and effort that went into this garage, I think, truly shows. I found a lot of little elements that I was able to incorporate, and I think my dad would be extremely proud of all of it. Well, friends, thanks for hanging out for my Dream Garage renovation. I'll be sure to keep you updated on where it evolves to and how I grow into this garage and where it's at in a year from now. Until then, I'll see you next time, friends.